Now you understand the patterns of change within an S-curve, it is now time to study the dynamics of change with particular focus on who shifts the curve from one paradigm into the next. One thing that always makes me smile is how people often describe change as a force for good that people will rapidly embrace. I think we need a reality check here. Change is tough and you will face resistance at every stage. You need to mentally prepare for that. When we think about changing S-curves from one paradigm to another, the resistance to change is going to be enormous. There will be an entire industry sector out there who have their livelihoods, their reputations, and their capability built on maintaining that current paradigm. So paradigm shifts are very difficult and need brave, ambitious, and more importantly, well-prepared firms to navigate through the process of shifting the industry from its current paradigm into the next one. Very rarely is it the people within the current sector. Why do you think P&G are looking outside with their long-established Connect and Develop program? They tried to become a company that shifted the S-curves and it nearly tore the company apart. They now recognise they need the disruptive technologies, but they are not always the right people to develop them. So they are actively outsourcing the process through the Connect and Develop program. P&G are quite unusual for an incumbent firm because they are quite eager to embrace S-curve changing technologies. Usually incumbents have little incentive to change. They have extensive investment in the infrastructure, process and markets they already dominate. Products based on new technology will steal market share from their existing ones that are probably very profitable, given the investment in infrastructure and capability that they've already made. Generally, they do not see technology as a threat, and if they do, it is often too late. They respond to a threat by improving the performance of their existing technologies, and they have the expertise to do that pretty quickly. The other tactic they will often use is their economic power. They will slash prices of their current products to stop people trying the newly emerging disruptive technology. As someone who has tried to bring disruptive innovation into organisations, you will be amazed at the organisational obstacles you will encounter. There will be a high level of organisational inertia, often bordering on arrogance towards change. People often believe if it has been good enough for the last few years, it will continue to be good enough for the next few years. That is why it is rarely an incumbent who shifts the curve. What I really like about these S-curves is that they are a potential tool to manage your organisational response to change. You can use them to identify what phase of the S-curve you, your competition, and any potential incumbents are at that point in time. One of the big mistakes firms make in trying to shift S-curves is understanding all of the impacts of the change. Change is difficult. You need to negotiate new contracts, find new suppliers. There are a whole range of impacts that will incur costs and cause organisational stress when you try to navigate from one S-curve to another. These are often referred to as switching costs, and they are usually underestimated. The same is true of the market power of the incumbents. They have a lot of money and resources tied up in maintaining the status quo, so they will make it very difficult for you. If you want to shift the S-curve, focus your effort on a very small segment of the market and truly excel at delivering against your customers' expectations. It is best to do it quite quietly, without being noticed until you have figured out how to scale it properly. Some cautionary words of warning. Always remember, it is not about technology changing a need. It is about making sure the need you are satisfying is real and that you can use technology to satisfy it better than anyone else in the marketplace. There are established models to study the change process. Abernathy and Utterback support the standard model I discussed earlier. Periods of incremental change with modest improvement, with periodic paradigm shifts creating disruptive improvements in performance before moving into another period of incremental innovation. The disruptive innovation provides both opportunity and risk. By obsoleting the incumbents, it opens up the playing field to new competitors. Unfortunately, that is how wars start. It was a disruptive technology paradigm shift to the dreadnought all-metal battleships that started the First World War. Until then, the British Royal Navy prevented many wars from occurring because it was such a superior naval force. Rival navies were simply unwilling to risk engagement. Great Britain, by building one steel battleship, obsoleted the entire Royal Navy. It levelled the playing field. Everyone could build steel battleships. The Royal Navy no longer had supremacy, and the Germans built submarines. Building that one piece of new technology, the steel battleship, led to a disruptive paradigm shift, the First World War, and the ultimate downfall of the entire British Empire. So I think it is fair to say that you should be prepared for difficult times in the fluid, disruptive innovation phase when the paradigm is shifting from one S-curve to the next. What eventually happens is a dominant design emerges from all of this chaos. It becomes the industry standard, and we enter a period of incremental innovation. There may be one market leader, but everyone will base their products around that standard design until the S-curve is shifted again. We now need to consider the actual nature of innovation. It generally falls into two categories. The first is new product innovation, where technology creates a new way to satisfy a customer need or demand. Then we have new process innovation, where technology makes it better, cheaper, or faster to make the product that people already want. The fluid phase of change is generally dominated by new product innovation. The specific or incremental phase is generally dominated by new process innovation. In the fluid phase, where the industry is shaking itself down, product innovation tends to dominate. A plethora of new products enter the marketplace until consumers find the one that they like the most, and then that becomes the dominant design. Once it does, the product innovation phase starts to settle down because we now have a standard product that people know and love. Then the focus becomes more on process innovation, because process innovation then delivers better margins, faster production, better ways of delivering that customer need. Process innovation follows the product innovation curve, but follows it just slightly out of phase. I always encourage technology ventures to think about the kind of strategic alliances or partnerships you need to navigate through each of the phases. In the early product innovation phase, you do not really want to be too firmly linked to individual technology suppliers. You need a network of suppliers, because as the design changes, it gives you the flexibility to change from one supplier to another and modify your product using the best available components. This gives you the best chance of finding and establishing that dominant design. So who is best suited to incremental and disruptive innovation? New firms function best in the chaos of the fluid phase because they can adapt to change much faster and change their product to make sure they lock their customers in. It does not matter that they are not great at scaling production, as they will probably outsource it and change suppliers a number of times as they go through the scale-up process. In the specific phase, which is really towards the end of the cycle where a shakeout occurs, it is really down to the survival of the fittest. Those companies that can really be masters of process innovation and find the best way to maximize economies of scale and really squeeze every single dollar of savings out of their production process. They will be the ones that will win. I really would not want to build a technology company in this particular part of the cycle, because the inevitable is that paradigm is going to shift and you're going to go out of business. So innovation in this late stage of the cycle is only about delaying the inevitable. The only way to survive a paradigm shift here is to be able to switch your manufacturing expertise into a new emerging market or paradigm shifting disruptive technology.